reigned in the region of Palestine, endorsed by the Roman Empire. A man presumably of Idumean descent, who was known as Herod the Great. Others of his descendants were also called Herod. But this is the founder of the dynasty. And he reigned from the year 37 to the year 4 BC. Herod the Great was a ruthless king. He murdered his wife, 3 of his children, his brother-in-law and his uncle, and of course, as we will see later, Balaam's children under 2 years of age. But Herod is also known in history for all his majestic works of infrastructure and the fortresses he built that can be visited as archaeological sites to this day. For example, his fortress Caesarea Maritima that he built between the years 22 to 10 BC, or his wonderful fortress at Masada that he built in the middle of the desert on the summit of that mountain. Not to mention Herodion, that palace and fortress that he built on the outskirts of Balaam. And in all these places he built monumental pools for his recreation. All of his works were majestic, so the nickname the Great suited him very well. But we must not forget that it was also Herod who rebuilt the temple in Jerusalem, the same one that stood in the days of Jesus and where he walked. So judging by his works, we can say that Herod was a very powerful man and rooted in his position in such a way that he did not tolerate any competition. It was in the time of this Herod that the biblical account in the Gospel of Matthew presents us with the following. Matthew 2, 1-2 says, "After Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the time of King Herod, some wise men came to Jerusalem from the east. 'Where is he who has been born King of the Jews?' they asked. 'We saw his star rise from him and we have come to worship him.' Some enigmatic men arrived in Jerusalem with a question that made the great Herod tremble. These men were scholars, scientists, who came from other nations, who were not Jews or who did not live under the beliefs of the Old Testament and, however, they arrived in Jerusalem with a disturbing question, which had made them travel many kilometers from the east to find the answer. His question was, where was the King of the Jews born? 690. They had arrived in Jerusalem looking for an answer to their question, and that is why they had gone to Jerusalem, the capital of the Jewish people, and they had a very well-defined purpose. We have followed his star and have come to worship him. This is incredible. These non-Jewish men had traveled from far away and came with a simple but firm purpose: we have come to worship him. That day, the people in power were surprised and scared. It tells us that King Herod was troubled by this unexpected quest, and immediately he began to plan how to find this supposed king who was potentially coming to dethrone him. So he called together from among the people all the chief priests and teachers of the law, and asked them where the Christ was to be born. They answered him, that in Bethlehem of Judea, a small town that was about 8 kilometers from Jerusalem. And they repeated what the prophet had said hundreds of years before. Matthew 2, 6 But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, you are by no means the least among the rulers of Judah. For out of you will come a prince who will be the shepherd of my people Israel. There was no doubt, the King of Jews, the Christ must have been born in Bethlehem. Herod was 8 kilometers away and was not able to go look for him. The biblical scholars were just a few kilometers away and did not go looking for him. These enigmatic and unsuspected men were the only ones who were determinedly searching for the king born to worship him. Scripture tells us that Herod secretly called the wise men and learned from them the exact time when the star had appeared. He sent them to Bethlehem and said to them, "Go and find out about that child, and as soon as you find him, tell me so that I too can go and worship him." Apparently Herod also wanted to worship him. He expressed it this way to the wise men, but it was all part of a plan to put an end to any threat against his hegemony. He wanted them to locate the child but not to worship him, but to annihilate him. King Herod was not going to take risks. If